Ladies and gentlemen, this is Protecting Elections Part 1. Voting is democracy, while we must protect elections, with remarks by Fox News contributor Deroy Murdock.
Good morning, CPAC Nation. Democrat John F. Kennedy liked to joke during the 1960 presidential campaign that he just opened a telegram from his father. It read, "Dear Jack, don't buy one more vote than necessary. I'll be damned if I pay for a landslide." Republican Bob Dole said in 1996, "When I die, I want to be buried in Chicago so I can stay active in politics." These lines get a chuckle or two these days, but especially after the November 2020 election fiasco, vote fraud is no laughing matter. CPAC's theme is America Uncanceled. A keystone of the right's new agenda absolutely, positively must be to uncancel election integrity. Why are clean elections vital? Why must Republicans and Democrats both be able to say after Election Day, "Yep, that was a fair vote"? Election integrity is a core principle that undergirds this constitutional republic that you and I love so much. In 1787, James Madison emphasized the importance of elections in Federalist Paper number 52. And as he wrote, "It is essential to liberty that the government in general should have an immediate dependence on and an intimate sympathy with the people. Frequent elections are unquestionably the only policy by which this dependence and sympathy can be effectually secured. Our republic relies on democratic elections to implement a basic tenet on which this nation stands." Thomas Jefferson wrote this in America's birth certificate, our Declaration of Independence. To secure the rights endowed by our Creator, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Through elections, we give our representatives our consent to be governed. Absent this consent, our founding fathers believed, government is illegitimate. Furthermore, since all men are created equal, our elections should empower one man with one vote. These words were taken quite literally for 144 years. Eventually, in 1920, we embraced the concept of one woman, one vote. And with the Voting Rights Act of 1965, we finally abolished the idea that one had to be white to vote. This proves for all the consulistas or wokistanis out there that America is not perfect, and we have made mistakes along the way, some of them huge, but we always try to do better. And sooner or later, either we get it right, or at least we do it better than damn near any place else on this planet. So in short, election integrity matters. Battle elections are essential to the good health of this republic as checks and balances, the rule of law, and liberty and justice for all. Alas, this guiding concept is in huge trouble these days. Despite the left's relentless lies, vote fraud is a problem. For concrete proof, check the Heritage Foundation's priceless vote fraud database. Heritage Foundation has detailed so far 1,130 criminal convictions for vote fraud. No, not accusations, not indictments, but criminal convictions, 1,130 of them. So don't tell me that vote fraud is just some right-wing hallucination. The November 2020 election was a nightmare. Judges and other officials made last-minute rule changes that only state legislators were authorized to enact, as the U.S. Constitution requires. Mysterious late-night ballot dumps triggered huge lopsided vote spikes for Joe Biden. Multiple affidavits offered sworn eyewitness reports of cars with out-of-state license plates unloading piles of ballots at counting centers in the wee small hours. Such shenanigans and many more infected Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. No wonder a November 18 Reuters survey found that 39% of Americans believe, quote, the election was rigged, unquote. This included 67% of Republicans, 31% of independents, and even 17% of Democrats. Willfully blind leftists ridicule the right's complaints about fake ballots and election irregularities because they were not widespread. Well, how widespread must vote fraud be before the left shares our concerns? Will that require 10,000 bogus ballots? 1 million phony votes? Here's a modest proposal. The left can pick that widespread number, we on the right will accept it. And in turn, the right will decide which leftists will have their genuine votes canceled by those widespread fraudulent ballots. Let's start with Rachel Maddow, Chuck Todd, Joy Reid, Chris Cuomo, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer. If illegal ballots nullify their votes, maybe they finally will fight for election integrity. Of course, that is unlikely because the Democrat Party is the party of vote fraud. Yes, this is quite a charge, but abundant evidence confirms this allegation. Democrats resist virtually every Republican idea to make our elections more secure, and they labor tirelessly to make our elections more chaotic, more unsupervised, and more unreliable. Democrats, not Republicans, blasted out mass mail-in ballots to everyone on voter rolls in multiple states, whether requested or not. Phantom ballots littered apartment building lobbies. Some were thrown in the trash. How many of them were filled out and submitted? Who knows? Democrats, not Republicans, installed ballot drop boxes on sidewalks where nobody oversaw them. How many fraudulent ballots got deposited in these boxes unchecked and then got counted? Who knows? Democrats, not Republicans, diluted signature match standards, which made it easier to accept and tabulate mail-in ballots with forged signatures. Democrats, not Republicans, blocked GOP observers from ballot counting rooms in Atlanta, Detroit, Philadelphia, and other Democrat swing state cities. In contrast, Democrat observers did their jobs in peace in Republican-controlled areas. Virginia lawmakers passed a sensible bill in 2017 that would have required an investigation of any election in which there were more ballots cast than eligible voters to cast them. Well, guess what? Former Governor Terry McAuliffe, a Democrat, not a Republican, vetoed that measure. The Federal Motor Voter Act and Help America Vote Act both require that states maintain accurate voter rolls. Here in Florida, former Governor Rick Scott attempted to remove 51,000 dead people from the voter rolls. Not so fast. Obama's Attorney General Eric Holder, a Democrat, not a Republican, sued Florida. Holder claimed that the governor's act of electoral hygiene violated the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And now Democrats, not Republicans, are pushing H.R. 1, a bill that would take everything that went haywire last November and shove it into the U.S. Code. As Nancy Reagan might have said, just say no to H.R. 1. We will underscore election integrity's crucial importance via multiple panels throughout CPAC, starting with our very next session. Please join us for these urgent discussions. Speaking of conservative political action, long before the 2022 midterm elections, conservatives should demand at a minimum the following reforms. First, as Ronald Reagan might have said, we must catapult mass mail-in ballots onto the ash heap of history. Second, absentee ballots must be limited to the old, the sick, the infirm, and what a concept, people who will be absent on Election Day. Third, Election Day must be Election Day, not election month or election quarter. Fourth, no more ballot harvesting. Fifth, voters must be American citizens, not foreign citizens. Sixth, voter rolls must be cleaned early and often to remove inactive, relocated, and deceased voters. Let's remember and honor our dead, but let's keep them away from the polls, shall we? Seventh, when voters cast ballots, they must show photo ID that proves they are who they say they are. Now, the left calls us racist for expecting black voters like everyone else to show ID cards. Wrong. What is racist is the Democrats' insistence that we blacks are too disorganized, too confused, or too stupid to get our hands on photo ID cards. What bigoted anti-black filth. Black Americans show photo ID 7 days a week to drive cars, cash checks, purchase adult beverages, and much more. Just yesterday, the federal government under Joe Biden made me show photo ID to board my jet to Orlando, just like everyone else. How racist. Now, if voter ID really is a tool of white nationalism, how does the left explain this? Nigeria, a country that is controlled by black people, if you want to vote, you got to show voter ID. Ghana, a country that is controlled by black people. If you want to vote, you got to show voter ID. And here is the situation in South Africa. Here is the late, great Nelson Mandela wearing a t-shirt that says, get an ID, register, vote. So yes, we want voter ID cards, and we want them now. Voter ID cards are good enough for Nelson Mandela, so they're good enough for the USA. The fight for clean elections will be huge in the months and years ahead, and we all need to fight like hell for election integrity. This is a fight we can and must win. If we lose, we will become the corruptly outvoted vassals of the left. It is in our hands, my fellow conservatives, to make elections great again. Thank you very much. Thank you.